Hello. It is chat number 13 of What Does Nature Mean to You? A live chat series that started kind of accidentally and has grown into a very enjoyable, well, I'm enjoying it, conversations with some wonderful, inspiring people. I've had authors, artists, wellbeing practitioners join me, conservationists, and today I have got a bushcraft teacher joining me at the unusual time of 2 o'clock rather than normal 8:30 p.m. Because David is tucked away in his woodland area. So he wanted to join me during the day from his woods so we can get a taster of the woods, which I'm very excited about. And David, I can see that you've joined the chat. So hopefully, David, you should see a little option to request to join. And if you click on that, that should get you in here. If not, I might be able to add you. Let's see. Hang on. Here we go. View request. Should be joining us any second now, live from his woods. I think he said he was right by the campfire, just enjoying a campfire cup of tea. So,
Hello.
Oh, look at that! Hello.
The woods rather than me. Oh, okay.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, this is. Oh, here you go. So this is the woods.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Whereabouts are you, David? Where are these woods?
I'm in the Chilterns.
Ah.
So South Buckinghamshire.
Fantastic.
How that works.
Get yourself all
Something
set
like that.
up. Oh, look at that campfire as well. Beautiful.
There you go. Something like that.
Welcome. Hello. Hello. Oh, thank you so much.
It's just started drizzling out here, but not very much.
Oh. You look like you're well set up for it, though, whatever the weather.
Yes, it was nice. Actually, it was unfortunate this morning. Supposed to have some teenagers from the local special needs school, but alas, they have the fun and games of the COVID and running out of teachers, so they didn't get to come today. So it's a bit sad. So I fiddled about making bows and arrows on my own instead of with them.
Sounds great. Maybe, David, you can tell us more what you do. Introduce yourself,
Okay,
because you have a plethora of skills.
What do I do? So I spend a lot of time in the woods. I've been teaching bushcraft for about the last 10 years. I've been out in the woods a lot longer than that, but love taking families out into the woods, so of all ages, and running courses for adults too, escapes to the woods, so kind of woodland weekends. We do bread baking, whittling spoons, making all sorts of things, and particularly within the woods is learning about the trees and the different textures. I'm sitting here amongst, it's difficult to move them all around, but I've got a bunch of hornbeam and cherry and oak, and what else we got here? Beech, a whole load of larch. So there's lots of lovely trees, and being able to take people out and get them to touch them, hug them, get familiar with them so that they can remember them, as opposed to just walking through the woods and thinking there's trees. Then they can slow down and actually start to appreciate them and learn a little more. So it's just nice. It's a great place. In fact, particularly this year, I think there's been more people wanting to be outside in nature. I think, that's just been really nice.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the posts of things that you've been doing, and or even before this year, I thought I'm desperate to come down and meet you and join you and come to one of your sessions at some point, and I will.
You need to do that.
Yes.
I might be here, but you need to come here, and then you can.
That's how it works.
You can do a video call from this end.
I prefer that type of video call, a real life one. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me. I will kind of do as I normally do, those 3 questions that I've been asking everyone, but of course within that there's space to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But that first question, which is always enjoyable for me to listen to the answer, is what is your earliest memory of connecting to nature in some way?
I think my earliest memory, I was very lucky as a youngster. At the end of our garden had a woodland, and so I guess I would have been possibly about 6. That's what I can sort of remember. And we're building camps at the ends of a garden in this little woodland, and with a friend, and we just sort of build places there and disappear into the woods, really. Quite lucky. So quite an early age. A lot of people are worried about their children disappearing off on their own nowadays. But yeah, we were pretty young. And then over the next few years, we used to get on our bicycles and cycle off to the local woods. So probably approaching 9. So there'd be 2 or 3 of us, and we would just cycle off to the woods. Places like Burnham Beeches, which is sort of South Buckinghamshire. But always being warned to come home before dark, because, well, you know, all the bad things might happen after dark. But actually, many, many years later, I was in a witchcraft museum down in Cornwall, and there was all the pictures and the things going on about the coven that was in Burnham Beeches. So my mum wasn't telling fibs to me, she was serious. Yeah. So it's quite nice to tie all those things up many decades later, going, that's why we weren't supposed to stay in the woods too late.
Tell me more. I want to know more.
Yeah, well, it's a whole, yeah, it was a coven, basically. Yeah, so occult type stuff that happened. It was well known for it in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. All sorts of things going on, quite sort of like the bumps in the night, you know. But yeah, there you go. Witchcraft in Burnham Beeches.
Because you are looking at your all the different skills that you have. You also say about natural history as well.
Yeah. So I think the love for it really is all the plants and the trees, particularly. And when I studied 10 years back, spent a lot of time learning about trees. And in fact, we did our winter twig identification. So we learned how to identify trees by twigs, not leaves. So actually, when the leaves came out in the spring, it was like, oh, what am I supposed to do with these? You know, where's the twigs? It's much easier. So, so the natural history part is very much, you know, the woodland walks. Not been able to do those this year, but I've been running walks for about the last 5 years. So once a month, I used to take families out. Looking forward to doing those again sometime. And we go out through the local woodlands, once a month, be free, and just get everyone to explore and learn about the trees, look at the stinging nettles, and see the difference between them and a dead nettle, learn about how to, cure the stings. And most people hopefully are aware that maybe the dock leaves are quite useful, but they tend to rub the leaves on, whereas in fact they need to juice the leaf in their hand, and then you put the juice on, and that works really well. And those that are brave enough, you see, if you really want to cure, then actually you do the same thing. You juice the leaves of a stinging nettle in your hand, and that actually cures. So the dock leaf will soothe a bit like an aloe vera, whereas the stinging nettle, when it's crushed, it's an urtica. So the urtica is what the Latin for the stinging nettle. And an urticaria will cure. It's rather like an antihistamine. It'll stop all the itching. So that works really well.
You just got to have the guts to grab the nettles.
Like that with all the children, taking them around, getting to look at the leaves and the different shapes, and whether you've got the teeth around the edges. So this is a hornbeam leaf. They look very similar at first glance to a beech leaf, but a beech leaf is smooth and slightly hairy around the edges. And the beech leaves are also good to eat, whereas the hornbeam are not.
Huh.
Yeah. So on the natural history, and then also knowing which trees you can use to make things. So when we want to whittle sticks, maybe looking for some hazel, or if we're going to carve a spoon and want to use some birch. The birch is very good, whether it's freshly cut or whether it's seasoned and it's been sitting there for a while. It's still lovely to carve a spoon. Whereas if you use cherry wood, it's lovely to carve when it's green and freshly cut. Whereas when it's seasoned, it becomes a bit like rock. So it's not quite so much fun. In fact, not nice to carve at all. But so it's learning about the different resources that are out in the woods, and then looking at some of the plants, looking at maybe things like burdock. So seeing the lovely big leaves, we can make hats with them and then see what they're doing. And that's their first year of growth. If you see huge burdock leaves, then the following year, it'll put up a big spike. And out of the top of that will be all the sort of prickly sort of flower buds. And they're the things that would then catch onto people's clothes and animals' fur to be taken off elsewhere. So the trick is to see where the burdock's growing in the first year and get there before it puts that great big growth spurt up. And then you've got to dig out the root, and then you can finally slice it, sort of do a little julienne and pan fry with a bit of soy sauce, and it's really nice. Yeah, so I do a lot of cooking and bread baking too. That's a lovely thing to do.
Heard of your legendary bread baking skills.
Oh, it's just lovely. I mean, say with families, bringing them out, and we build dens, shelters. So build a shelter, so all the leaves on the top. We do the fire lighting, but most of all, we get them all involved together in baking fresh bread. So if we make the yeast up, and they can see the yeast starting to froth, and then make the dough, and then this kneading process, and then we leave it to prove while we do some more building of the dens. And then once it's proved, we then bake it over the fire. It's a fun thing to do. Really cool.
It also feels like it's, oh, sorry, I was going to say, it just feels like it's connecting the dots. Like a lot of these chats that I've had, connection comes up a lot, and that's connecting to nature, connecting to each other. But particularly now listening to you, it sounds like all of that is connecting. It's actually a family connecting together,
Yeah.
but connecting the dots to nature and what our connection was to nature and still can be. And that's what's really striking me as I listen to you now.
I think it was quite, I've been doing the family bushcraft for, I don't know, a number of years. And it sort of grew organically, and not really that contrived, but it just felt right to be building a shelter, to be making a fire, and to make food, because they're the primal things. Yeah, it just makes sense. And in doing all of those things, you're learning a bit about nature. You're learning which sticks we're going to use, and finding the thin ones and what we can use for tinder. We're learning the properties of sticks as we build a shelter. It's that lovely sort of holistic process of just reconnecting and I don't know what it is really. I was thinking about this just the other day, but after one of the other ones I was watching. It's reigniting those primal skills that are kind of lying dormant within us, because we did them for thousands of years, and it's only in recent centuries we kind of forgot how to light a fire. We forgot how to look after ourselves in the woods. And it's just trying to bring that back in, and it works. I have all sorts of families that keep coming back too, which is lovely. So I see children when they're like 2 or 3 years old, and then I end up seeing them when they're 6, because they keep coming back with their families. And then because they're a little bit older, we do some whittling sticks and carving things, or burning names into pieces of wood with a magnifying glass, and making bows and arrows, these sorts of things. So it's kind of putting all those things in context, allowing yourself to explore the woods, to just breathe, to listen to the birds, to see the differences through the seasons. Most of the leaves here have gone now. They're all falling down. So you've got lots of leaf coverage around the place. So it'd be brilliant for building some more shelters. And see the badger tracks, the badger cam. So where I often take the students across to see that on the Friday morning, first thing. And we go and look to see what the badgers have been doing over the weekend, on the previous week. So it's just great. I had some really, I did post a few on Instagram. So there's a few pictures on there of these badgers. They're brilliant. They're kind of 2 of them lying back as if they were kind of scratching their tummies. It's just lovely to see. It's really good. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting on the opposite side of the dell, waiting to see if I'd be lucky enough to see the badgers. And because I know where most of the badger sets are, and they're huge earthworks. And I was sitting really quietly, and I checked that the wind was in the right direction. And then I heard a noise slightly to my right. I think that doesn't make sense. I was expecting to be on the other side of this great big dell. So the following morning, I had another look, and I realized that there was a new set that they'd been digging. And basically, the reason the badgers didn't come out is I was almost sitting on top of them. I just hadn't seen them until the following day. So it's really, yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
And with the families that come, and some of the families that come regularly, or you said, you know, groups of teenagers or things like that, what difference, or do you see a difference between when they arrive and when they finish, or when they're coming regularly? What would you perhaps summarize? Is there the benefits? This seems a bit,
they're all
crass, but
chilled. It's different, you know, families versus teenagers. So you have teenagers that come here that have got various special needs, behavioral issues and things like that. But more than, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're just leaving here chilled, relaxed, getting on with each other far better than when they arrive. When I've worked with people like Headway, so they're a charity that help people with acquired brain injury, they keep coming back. And I had one guy who has very little communication, and the feedback from his mother afterwards, his guy's in his probably mid-40s, was simply the fact that he was happy for the rest of the day, and the fact that he just normally isn't. He's usually agitated. Then coming back through to where you actually asked, you know, with the families, it's just they're relaxed, they work together. The key thing for me when in running the family bushcraft is that they are all doing things together. So they're creating that connection between mum, dad, and the children, and they're all doing stuff and helping each other, which is really special. I love that. I don't want anybody to just sort of come along and just sit there and watch the kids. This is not what it's about. It's about as a family unit. But even just some, you know, so the family bushcraft typically is maybe 4 hours, and in amongst that, they'll also have something cooked perhaps over the campfire, as well as doing their bread. Maybe they toast a sausage or a marshmallow or whatever it is they want, really. But after 4 hours, and they leave, and they're saying like, oh wow, look, they just realize leaving the woodland environment, and they're suddenly out into the daylight again, and it's as if they've been here for many hours more than they really have. You know, it's just like, oh, that's what it's like out here, because for a few hours they've just escaped. And it happens even when when I'm running spoon carving courses, bread baking courses, and the food cooking and all that sort of thing. Somebody spends, you know, the day here, and at the end of the day when they leave, it's just like, oh yes, I remember now. That's what it's like outside. And it really doesn't take very long to be immersed in the woodlands and to be in nature and have your fire, to kind of push all that other stuff away and just relax and just be. And I think that's the key thing. When they leave, they suddenly realize that was that other world and it's still out there. So they're going to go back, and then hopefully on the walk up the path to where their cars sit, they're going, so when can we come back again? Or mum, can we come back to the woods, please? You know, and that sort of thing. And campouts too. That's one of the, with adults, I'd always do the campouts. But this year, with all the COVID side of things, there's been 1 or 2 people that have asked, well, can we do a family campout? Well, I haven't done that before. I've done lots of family bushcraft. So we did. And the family slept out in the dens that they made. So we built all the sticks, you know, the dens, put loads of leaves on top. I did put a couple of tarpaulins over just to be safe. And we had 2 children in one, the other one next to it with one of the children and their dad. Mum was in a hammock. We put a tarpaulin up between the 2 shelters, and then mum sat there on a log in the evening reading the children a story. Because their children were, how old were they? 2 6-year-olds and an 8-year-old. So we're all, you know, and we've done a couple of others like that as well. So young children with their families, and we do a 24-hour. So start at, you know, arrive on 10 o'clock on a Saturday and leave Sunday morning, having you know, spent time lighting fires, learning about the woods, baking bread, cooking meals, the slightly spookiness of sleeping in a den and hearing the noises of the woods, wondering if the badgers are going to come across. Oh, don't worry, they only take away the small children, and which of course reassures them no end. And then they get up and we have breakfast, have a bit of fun, walk around the woods, and then off they go. It's
Sounds
kind of
like
nice.
heaven.
It's good.
It's so
It's
simple,
a really,
isn't it? As
it's
well,
a
that's
really
the thing.
special thing to be doing with them. It's really nice.
Yeah, and the fact that something so simple, and as you said, we would have been doing not that long ago. Oh, it's tending to the fire. One beaver.
Have a few flames. There you go. Almost.
But yeah, something so simple that we would have done so naturally is now so far removed that we kind of have to book it and come and do it, and listening. And whenever this topic or conclusion comes up for me, there's this excitement of that simplicity at the same time as I always feel a little bit of loss for us as well, that this isn't the life that we live every day.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. But to do it for real, you know, to do it on an ongoing basis, it would be hard, very hard. I can remember talking to my wife's gran when she was still around, and they lived in Chalfont St Giles where I live, and they had a well at the end of their garden. And I thought, oh wow, cool! The fact that I could, you know, go along to a well and, you know, get the bucket to go down and gather the water. And she says, it was hard work, David. You know, you know. So it wasn't that long ago. You know, this is 100 years ago, and they were, you know, pulling the water out of the ground, and I just thinking, wow. To me, it was just like, wow, that'd be just so cool. So we can do a lot more of this, and sometimes it's just taking a few steps outside our front door and going for a walk. There's been a lot more people walking through the woods where I am here on the paths, and sometimes popping by and saying hello. I put signs up saying, you know, if I'm here, stop by and say hello, maybe even have a coffee. So obviously, you know, social distancing and all that stuff, but easy enough to sort of stop by and have a coffee and just, let the world go by, really. It's nice.
I was just looking at some comments, and Andy Lean, spending time with David in his woods is very special. Oh,
thank you, Andy.
And there was a couple of other comments. And Andy also said, my aunt taught me to climb trees in Burnham Beeches.
Awesome. This, if anyone knows, well, is near to Burnham Beach, well, the people that are near it, hopefully go for a walk through there. There's some lovely old oak trees that are all hollowed out. And I used to play there as a kid. You know, that's a long time ago. So they're all hollowed out. But what's nice, rather than fencing them off, they just put lots of brush, lots of deadwood around them to stop people, you know, doing too much harm to any of them. But it's a fabulous place to go walking, Burnham Beeches, down near Slough. And then the other place that's not far away from that is Black Park. So that's right next to Pinewood, the big film studios. So that's very different environment. But Burnham Beeches, Black Park, all those people in South Bucks, they're the places to head out to and get some wild time. And they're big enough to go and find somewhere quiet and to sit. And you'll probably be safe from the witches now. But, you know.
I don't know if Andy knew about that when he was climbing trees or not.
Well, maybe his mum didn't know. It was great.
In some ways, I'm sure a lot of what we talked about kind of will answer it at the second question, but I'll go on to it anyway. The what does nature mean to you? And, you know, obviously you're someone that's connected an awful lot with it and spends a lot of time with it. But has that connection or that meaning changed in any way or shifted in any way this year in particular?
What does it mean? It's about being nature. It's that groundedness. I'm sitting here, you know, I'm sitting on the ground next to the campfire, and it just feels right. Often, you know, if rubbing sticks to make a fire, didn't do that today, admittedly, but then barefoot or walking through, that's something I would definitely encourage people to think, well, yes, it's cold, but so what? You know, take your shoes and socks off and just walk through the leaves. You know how lovely it is with your boots and you're wandering along, kicking all the leaves around. Do it barefoot. Do it mindfully. Do it at that slow pace. Walk gently because there may be a few prickly bits. And just walk through and feel that. And that's what it's all. Nature to me is about getting up close, because we are part of nature, aren't we? You know, it's not about being in nature. We are part of it. It's just reminding ourselves of that, and touching the ground, rubbing the earth, you know, and the leaves. That's what it's all about. And how has it changed? Or this year, it's just been. I've probably spent a little bit more time doing this on my own. It's been. What I have been doing also, when allowed, is one-to-one campfire conversations, and that's been really special. That's just an invitation to pretty much anyone, really. So I've had friends, new friends, colleagues from the distant past. In fact, last week before, a colleague. Is it a colleague? I'm not even sure. It was a colleague, actually. It's just someone I knew through my old world in tech and stuff like that. And we knew each other from maybe 20, 25 years ago. And we've kept connected, all the social media platforms. And he just, yeah, love to. And so we just met up and we chatted about photography and education, because he was a teacher for a while. And then other things where I've had people coming out. There was amazing, actually, one guy who came out and spent 24 hours with me, and he is, in fact, he works for Pfizer. Yeah, kind of topical at the moment. Yeah, he's in charge of about 10,000 people making a vaccine. You know, another guy who he's in his mid-40s. Bless him, he's retired from running a $1 billion empire of sports empire in the US, and he's now come back to the UK. So there's all sorts. And then there's sometimes just people who just want to chill. And then it's been lovely when Andy's come across, and we just sit around chatting about anything and everything. That's really what's been very different this year, is the one-to-ones, the closer contact. Historically, I would, if a family bushcraft would be maybe 3 families or 4 families at a time, and now it's just 1. And I'm running my courses to be a bit smaller, so there's only 4 people. Makes it easier for social distancing, and hopefully everyone's a lot happier. But actually, the other thing I've been doing is simply one-to-one sessions for the day or the night or the weekend, because not everybody wants to be around lots of people, and it just makes it nicer. So I've had people saying, well, actually, could I just do a one-to-one? It's like, yep, absolutely. Business wise, maybe it's a little harder to see it really working, but actually I've decided I'd much rather be busy, to be honest, than and it's just nice. It's a very different connection when you've got one family or one person here, and you can talk about all sorts of things. So we might be, we might be sitting here carving a spoon, but talking about, I don't know, anything, global problems, hopefully not too often, but we do from time to time, or just simply talking about, oh, what's that sound? Or how do we know the difference between the call of a buzzard or the one of a red kite? And we're talking about, oh, what can we hear? Or what's that noise? Or whereabouts are the badgers? Oh, let's go and look at those. So what's been different is is a much more personal connection this year. And that's been really cool.
Oh, what did you hear?
And interestingly, I can hear some other people not far away, but hopefully they come across quite yet. I'm just doing a video call at the moment, guys. If you want to chat in a bit, give it 5 or 10 minutes. You want to say hello?
There you go. It just shows anyone can walk past and say hello.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's kind of nice.
Having that one-to-one space in particular, surrounded by nature, as you say, I imagine just holds that space for people as well. And I remember reading about quite a few community gardening projects, particularly for people that perhaps were going through mental health challenges. And how just being out in nature and perhaps doing something practical, whittling a spoon or baking bread, allows for that space to talk if people want to, but they don't have to, and equally could just be talking about what you're doing or the sounds of birds, but just giving that space in their mind to kind of free up. And I imagine some really interesting conversations can come up from that too.
Yeah, you do. Some various bits, personal stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's good. It is. It's yeah, it does.
I feel that. Well, I guess with that then, what would your advice be for other people? And I guess in some ways that feels like a vague question, but the question could apply to whatever advice you would like it to be. I've often sort of added perhaps in lockdown or connecting to nature, but what would you like to add, or how would you like to answer that?
I think if it's all, a lot of people would already have twigged to the idea of trying to get outside for a walk. And for those that haven't got the luxury, the privilege of having a garden or a bit of space of their own, and there's lots like that, then try to search out those green spaces. And it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I guess, many years ago, I lived in the city. I was in sort of South London. But try to find somewhere. And even if it's going for a walk and seeing some plants growing up out of the pavement or between the cracks of a brick wall, and just be inquisitive and look for where nature is trying to reclaim what we've been building and making. Maybe that would help. So go and try and find some green, and see what's growing. Or if there's a park, go and spend some time there. If you can, not if you can, everybody can. Take your shoes and socks off. Wriggle your toes in the grass. Yeah, maybe your toes will get a bit muddy. Don't worry about it too much. Maybe take a little mat or a plastic bag from when you've been going shopping and sit on that, and just sit on the ground and maybe wriggle your hands in the leaves, look at the trees, maybe marvel at them, look up, see what's going on, and just wonder what it would be like to be at the top of a tree. If you can, with your family, get them out, take them for a walk, splash in puddles, we get some frost, marvel at that. If you've got a bucket around somewhere and there's water in it, hopefully if you get when it gets really cold, who knows whether it will, maybe there'll be some ice on there, and crack it and then look through and see the amazing patterns. So I think the important thing is to just get outside and look for interesting things, find a log, turn it over and see what's wriggling around underneath, and put it back afterwards. That would be what I'd like to do. And if you're not too far away from me and the children's, you can come and give me a shout and say, hey, can I come along and say hello? So do that. But yeah, I think get out. And if you can find other people that maybe do similar things to me, or you're not sure, actually, if you're in another part of the country somewhere and wondering who might do similar things to David, then just ask. I know quite a lot of people, and I'll just say, hey, go off and talk to them and see whether there's somewhere else you can go and light a fire or sit in the woods somewhere. But just, go and find a local park, a green space, and just sit there for a bit. And if it's miserable, well, maybe you can have some sort of tarpaulin structure, but not everybody's got a tarp. Then just take a brolly along. I don't know. Just sit there underneath your brolly and just sit and watch the worlds go by.
Oh, I love
Quite a
that.
long tip, lots of things, but yeah, something like that.
Lovely. Thank you. Before we go, and obviously to get in touch with you, I'll make sure when I post this video, I tag you and have your
Cool,
contacts in there. But But before we go, because someone just said, love the kettle in the background, Story Forager, who I'll be chatting to on Monday as well. I wondered if it might be all right if you could just, at the very beginning, you kind of had turned the camera around. We've got a few more people watching again, or people didn't see the beginning, whether you could just show us quickly around or around your camp. Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So, there you go. So let's take us for a little walk. Meow. Has it gone? No, it hasn't gone yet, is it? There we go. Is it trying to? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is looking out to the north into the woodlands. We can see all the leaves. Those are the things that you need to be wriggling your toes around. And then, oh, what else have we got? There we go. Let's have another look at the campfire. So we've got the campfire there and a bit of a fire surround. And a bunch of logs in the park background. And if I step us back, here we go. So there's my woodland camp. And a few of the log piles. Just about, yeah, is that okay? Yeah, it gives you an idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got
brilliant.
that. Okay, let's have a quick wander across so we can see. So here's the sort of the larger campfire circle, and then way up into the trees, probably won't be able to see it, there's a big rope that goes across, and we hang I hang a great big parachute up. And then you can see some dens. So they've got some tarpaulins over the top just to help keep the leaves down. It was very blowy at the time. Here we go. And so if we can see inside. Now, I hope you probably won't be able to see very clearly, but it is dry in there. And so we've got some, so you've got a load of leaves. You can see, yeah, there you go. So you've got all the leaves on top of the sticks and a tarpaulin just to keep them all toasty warm. And you can just about make, there you go, forget the light. You can see all those sticks disappearing down. And then another one over there. And then in fact, just over there, there's another big shelter as well. And there was a newly married couple, not the honeymoon, it was a bit longer than that, but and they came and spent the weekend with me, and they slept in that one together. Well, we built it, and then they slept in it. The same with these ones. The families built these with some help, and then they slept in them. So, and they're there for sort of, what else? Yeah, here we go. More of the woods.
It's beautiful.
It's kind of a nice spot.
It is indeed. Oh, thank you so much for sharing it with us. We had some lovely comments as well. Living in the woods and working with wood myself, I understand fully David's passion to share. Fabulous storyteller. My heart has been warmed. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. That was yeah. It's just, well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Life, you've got to tell stories, and just yeah, it's a good place to be. It's a good place. Yeah.
Thank you so much, David.
It's a pleasure. Lovely chatting to you.
And thank you so much for the suggestion of doing it during the day and from the woods. That's just an absolute delight.
Wow. You know, come on, this is nature connection, and yeah, I mean, you've got a lovely picture behind you, but you know, come on.
It's not the same.
No. you need to come when safe to do and all that, you know. But yeah, you can come out here, or you can even just to come along and have a chat by the campfire. I don't know, bake some bread. There's an invitation. Hey, and maybe you could do a different call. So actually, you could call somebody else, and sort of be here, and yeah, I don't know, whatever. Make it up as we go along. Really.
Exactly. We'll see what we can do.
Something. It's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was so wonderful. Oh, it was just so lovely. Sorry, I'm smiling and so full of joy myself. Yeah, someone else said brings back loads of childhood memories of playtime in the woods. Yeah, fantastic. David Willis, Bushcraft teacher. I'll make sure he's all tagged so you can get in contact with him. And as he said, if you're not near where he is, then he'll probably know someone near you that can guide you in a similar experience. So it's been a real pleasure and a real treat today, because I have a second chat tonight at the usual time of 8:30 p.m. and I am chatting to Sonia from Adore Your Outdoors, who is a forest bathing guide. So very much looking forward to chatting to her as well. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for the lovely